What did Jesus mean? Make friends of mammon, of unrighteousness, as they receive you when they fall. We read the passage first and foremost. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. So it seems to suggest, just by reading this one line, right, and we're not going to stop there just for the record, there is a situation in which people that are rich, who may not necessarily even be saved, can help a Christian when they fall into some sort of hardship or some sort of drama. Let's go from verse 1, right? Just to get at least some basic context. And he said also unto his disciples. So even this passage right here, you can see that this is following from something previously, because it says, and he said also unto his disciples, there was a certain rich man which had a steward, and the same was accused unto him that he had wasted his goods, right? So he's teaching them something. There was this rich guy who had a steward, and he was accused that he was not basically following through. He was not taking care of this rich man's goods. So how am I hearing that you're not taking care of what I've ultimately given you? Give an account of thy stewardship, for thou mayest be no longer a steward. So it seems like you're not doing the right thing, Mr. Steward. I need you to give an account of what you've been managing for me, because you don't need to have this job anymore. Then it says in verse 3, then the steward said within himself, what shall I do? For my Lord taketh away from me the stewardship. I cannot dig. To beg, I am ashamed. What am I going to do? Because right now is peak. I don't want to work. I don't want to beg. I am resolved, he says in verse 4, what to do. That when I am put out of the stewardship, they may receive me into their houses. So what does he say? It's looking peak for me right now. So I need to use some wisdom right now to secure myself if things become difficult. Let's continue. He says in verse 5, so he called every one of his lord's debtors and said unto the first, how much do you owe my lord? So he called all of the people that owe his lord something. How much do you owe? Verse 6 says, unto the first, how much thou owest, right? So the first person, verse 6, and he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said unto him, take thy bill and sit down quickly and write 50, right? So he's doing him a favor, the first person. Number 7, then said he to another, and how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said unto him, take thy bill and write 80, so write 80 instead of 100. He did a second person a favor. And the Lord commended the unjust steward in verse 8, because he had done wisely. And what does it say? For the children of this world are in their generation wiser than the children of light. Just by reading 8 verses above, we've got much more context to what verse 9 is ultimately talking about. Verse 9 says, and I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. He gave an example of this unjust steward. He was a wicked person to a certain degree, but he was wise. He used wisdom, and it ultimately worked out for him in some senses after, because of the wisdom he implored. They can help you out when you're in trouble, just like this unjust steward helped himself out in that particular scenario.